The Valari Council watched from their command station as the last of their warships moved into position. Admiral Kethra stood at the center of the war room, his four eyes scanning the tactical display with cold satisfaction. Every ship in the Valari Dominion had been called to this fight. Every weapon had been loaded. Every soldier had been prepared to die. For 300 years, the Valari had ruled this sector of the galaxy. They had crushed 17 species. They had burned worlds and enslaved billions. No race had ever challenged their supremacy. No force had ever made them feel fear. Until the humans came. The first human ship had appeared at the edge of Valari space just 2 years ago. It was small. It was alone. The Valari had destroyed it without a second thought. They had laughed at the primitive design and the weak metal hull. They had celebrated another easy victory. Then more ships came. Bigger ships. Faster ships. Ships that did not die when they were supposed to die. The humans called themselves the Terran Empire. They spoke of peace at first. They asked for trade routes and diplomatic relations. The Valari Council had responded by destroying their ambassador's vessel and broadcasting the execution of the survivors across all channels. That was 18 months ago. Now the Valari were the ones running. Admiral Kethra watched as the human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. His tactical officers counted the ships, 112 vessels. The Valari had 347. The numbers favored them greatly, but Kethra had read the reports from the front lines. He had seen the footage of Valari dreadnoughts breaking apart under human weapons fire. He had listened to the dying screams of captains who had outnumbered the humans 5-1 and still lost. "All ships, prepare for engagement," Kethra ordered. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "Launch all fighters. Deploy all missiles. We end this today." The Valari fleet moved forward like a great wave of metal and fire. Thousands of fighters poured from the carrier ships. Missiles by the millions streaked across the void. Energy beams lit up the darkness like artificial stars. They threw everything they had at the human fleet. The Imperial fleet had more. Commander Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Ts unconquered, the flagship of the 3rd Imperial Battle Group. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Her uniform was simple. Her posture was relaxed. She looked almost bored. "Enemy fleet is engaging," her tactical officer reported. "They're launching everything, Commander. Full missile barrage. All fighters deployed. Energy weapons at maximum output." Sarah nodded slowly. She had expected nothing less. The Valari were proud creatures, proud and stupid. They had started this war thinking humans were weak. They had murdered diplomats and civilians. They had broadcast their crimes to the galaxy as a warning. Now they would learn what a warning truly meant. "Activate defense grid," Sarah said calmly. "Let them waste their ammunition." The Imperial fleet's point defense systems came online. Thousands of small turrets on each ship began tracking incoming projectiles. Railguns fired in precise patterns, creating walls of metal that shredded missiles before they could reach their targets. Laser batteries swept across fighter squadrons, turning them into expanding clouds of debris and fire. The Valari's massive opening attack killed exactly 0 human ships. Kethra stared at his display in disbelief. His tactical officers were screaming numbers at him. 90% of their missiles destroyed. 60% of their fighters gone. Energy beams deflecting off human shields without leaving a scratch. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "Our intelligence said their shields were weak. Our scientists said their weapons were primitive." His second-in-command, a younger officer named Veltok, looked at him with fear in all 4 of his eyes. "Admiral, perhaps we should retreat. Regroup and—" "Retreat where?" Kethra snarled. "This is our home system. Our breeding world is behind us. Our children are on that planet. We cannot retreat." He was right. The Valari had nowhere left to run. The humans had pushed them back system by system, battle by battle. Every world they had conquered over 3 centuries was now under human control or burning in nuclear fire. This was their last stand. All ships close to engagement range, Kethra commanded. If their long-range defenses are strong, we will fight them at close range. We will ram their ships if we must. We will drag them into the fire with us. The Valari fleet surged forward, 347 ships racing toward 112. At close range, numbers would matter. At close range, they could board. They could fight hand-to-hand. The Valari were larger than humans, stronger. They had claws and armored skin. Sarah watched the enemy approach with the same calm expression. She had seen this tactic before. The Valari always did this when they realized they were losing. They abandoned strategy and embraced desperation. They're closing for direct engagement, her tactical officer said. Range in 2 minutes. Good, Sarah replied. Signal the fleet. Deploy the Titans. Across the Imperial battle line, the largest ships began to move. These were not the cruisers and destroyers that made up the bulk of the fleet. These were something else entirely. Massive vessels, each one 5 kilometers long. Ships built not for speed or agility, but for one purpose alone: total devastation. The Imperial Titan-class battleships carried weapons that violated the laws of physics as the Valari understood them. Compressed antimatter cannons that could crack planets. Gravitational lances that could tear ships apart at the molecular level. Shield generators powerful enough to withstand a supernova. There were 12 Titans in the Imperial fleet. Each one was worth 1,000 enemy vessels. Kethra saw the Titans deploy on his tactical display. He had heard rumors about these ships. Horror stories from survivors who had witnessed their power. He had dismissed those stories as the ravings of broken minds. Now he watched as the Lid Titan fired its main weapon. A beam of pure white light, brighter than any star, shot across the void and struck a Valari dreadnought. The ship did not explode. It did not burn. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, carrying a crew of 8,000 soldiers. The next moment there was only empty space. The Titan fired again. Another ship vanished. And again, and again. Fall back, Kethra screamed. All ships, fall back to defensive positions. Protect the homeworld. But it was too late for defense. The Imperial fleet was moving forward now. Cruisers and destroyers launched boarding pods at crippled Valari vessels. Marines in power armor stormed through corridors and took command bridges by force. Human soldiers, smaller and weaker than the Valari, cut through their enemies like machines of death. The power armor made the difference. It amplified human strength by a factor of 50. It provided protection against any weapon the Valari possessed. It turned every human marine into an unstoppable force of nature. Sarah watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The Valari fleet was crumbling. Ships were surrendering. Escape pods were launching. The great enemy that had terrorized this sector for 3 centuries was dying before her eyes. "Commander," her communications officer called out. "We're receiving a transmission from the enemy flagship. Admiral Kethra wishes to negotiate surrender terms." Sarah considered this for a moment. The Valari had never surrendered before. They had always chosen death over defeat. This was new. "Put him through," she said. Kethra's face appeared on the main screen. He looked old, broken. His 4 eyes were dim with exhaustion and despair. Behind him, Sarah could see fires burning and officers running in panic. "Human commander," Kethra said, "I offer the unconditional surrender of the Valari Dominion. We accept whatever terms you impose. Please, spare our homeworld. Spare our children." Sarah stared at him for a long moment. She thought about the diplomats the Valari had murdered. She thought about the billions of slaves they had taken over the centuries. She thought about the worlds they had burned and the species they had driven to extinction. She thought about justice. "Admiral Kethra," she said finally, "the Terran Empire accepts your surrender. Your military vessels will power down their weapons and prepare for boarding. Your soldiers will submit to detention. Your leaders will stand trial for crimes against sentient life." Kethra nodded quickly, relief flooding his features. "Yes, of course. Whatever you demand. We will comply with everything. But know this," Sarah continued, her voice hardening. "Your people started this war with murder. You broadcast the deaths of innocent humans as entertainment. You laughed as you killed our ambassadors." She leaned forward. "The Empire does not forget. The Empire does not forgive. Your species will survive, Admiral. But your dominion is over. Your empire is ashes. And for the next 1,000 years, the Volari will serve the races they once enslaved." The transmission ended. Sarah turned to her officers. "Begin occupation operations. I want troops on that planet within the hour. Anyone who resists is to be dealt with accordingly." "Yes, Commander," her officers replied in unison. Sarah walked to the observation window and looked out at the battlefield. Volari ships drifted dead in space. Human vessels moved between them, collecting survivors and securing wreckage. The homeworld of humanity's greatest enemy hung in the void, waiting for its new masters. She thought about how this war had started: a small ship, a peaceful mission, a message of friendship. The Volari had responded with violence. They had thought humans were weak because they sought peace first. They had mistaken kindness for cowardice. They had assumed that a species willing to negotiate was a species unable to fight. They had been wrong. The Terran Empire had learned long ago that the galaxy was a dangerous place. They had built their military not for conquest, but for survival. Every ship was designed to win against superior numbers. Every soldier was trained to face impossible odds. Every weapon was created to end wars quickly and decisively. The Empire did not want to fight. But when they had to fight, they made sure they only had to do it once. Sarah watched as the Imperial flag was raised over the first Volari city. Across the galaxy, other species would hear of this victory. They would learn that the humans who had come in peace were also humans who could bring fire and death. They would think twice before attacking Terran vessels. They would remember what happened to the Volari. The war was over. The enemy was defeated. The Empire had lost less than 3,000 soldiers across the entire campaign. The Volari had lost millions. They had thrown everything they had at the Imperial fleet. The Imperial fleet had more, and now the galaxy knew it. In the years that followed, the Volari served their sentence. They worked to rebuild the worlds they had destroyed. They aided the species they had enslaved. Some of them learned to regret their past crimes. Others simply accepted their fate in silence. The humans watched over them with weapons ready, but hands extended. The Empire believed in justice, not cruelty. It believed in redemption, even for those who had shown none to others. But it also believed in being prepared. Because somewhere out there, beyond the stars humanity had explored, other powers were watching. Other empires were calculating. Other species were wondering if they could succeed where the Volari had failed. And Commander Sarah Chun wanted them to know one thing. They could try. The Imperial fleet would be waiting.